I think broadly speaking, we've all got the same problem. Everybody has good intentions, but we've all got the same problem. And I think really, I think it was Cool Hand Luke, where the captain summed it up when he was talking to Paul Newman. He said, what we've got here is a problem with communication. And whereas we all want to try and do the right thing, finding the right way to do it is the key. We looked at procurement in Carmarthen as a function about 2 years ago, and really started to speak to local business, if I'm honest, for the first time. We learned an awful lot from that, and one of the first things they said to us is we need one point of contact. You're a big organisation, 9,000 employees, devolved procurement, so there could be 500 people buying. That's everything from pencils to buildings, but there are a lot of individuals involved and no clear route of who they should talk to. Very straightforward issue, very easy to solve, but we hadn't spotted it. We did something about that immediately. The follow-up to that then was to set up an initiative that we call the Procurement Surgery initiative, which was getting out there into the business community and meeting businesses. That's been running for about 18 months now, and we've met about 350 businesses. We've now got a very clear idea of how they perceive us, probably for the first time. Big, awkward, unfriendly, bureaucratic, overlong documentation, too much jargon, not enough consistency between the documentation that we put out as an authority, big differences between the documentation that departments put out. Those are some of the issues that are coming back to us. Oh, absolutely. I can't stress that strongly enough. 99% of all Welsh businesses are SMEs. They provide 60% of employment, and that equates to 40% of Welsh GDP. That's how important is the area that we're talking about. It's critical. In all public sector bodies are looking for the same thing. They're looking for an improved supply chain, better quality suppliers, more flexible suppliers. SMEs will give you that. If we can use local SMEs, that feeds into our local community, and it's a win-win for everybody. Well, I think there's an awful lot happening out there. There is a great deal happening out there, and there's a lot of case study work being put out by the Improvement and Development Agency, by the Value Welsh procurement team, lots of stuff out there. The only one that I can talk about with any real authority is our own procurement surgery initiative in Carmarthenshire, where we've set up a series of meetings, informal meetings with businesses at a time and location convenient to them. We've always expected them to come to us. Time is money to a small business. We go to them, and we tend to hold them in, we'll hold them anywhere that's relevant, really, on the industrial estates, village halls, pubs even. As long as we can get the people to come and talk to us, that's the key. 350 businesses have done that so far, and we're learning a great deal. And I think what we are seeing from our own experience and from where the legislation and the good practice is leading us is earlier and earlier involvement and engagement with these companies. The sooner we start talking to one another, the better. I think from our point of view, the most valuable thing that we get is information back from them on how we're doing. What did our documentation look like? Where did we cause problems in the way we went about packaging the business, for instance? We gain a great deal of information from those discussions about that sort of thing. From the individual business's point of view, we've conducted a very thorough evaluation of the offer that they put to us. We can feed back to them where their offer was strong and where their offer was weak, and that gives them the opportunity to build up their business case in certain areas, makes them more competitive for the next bid. A group of us were talking about this just the other day. In our experience, hardly any of the winning bidders come back for debriefing, which I find quite amazing, because there's a huge learning opportunity. I mean, once the business is awarded, we would want to work with a successful supplier to bridge any gaps that we felt existed in their offer. This is a chance for us to sit down at a very early stage to learn where those gaps are, discuss how they've come about, and set about bridging them from the very start. Well, this is a personal opinion, but I think the key to that is to look at what the prime drivers for that authority are. In Carmarthenshire County Council's case, we have a community plan that sets out an ambitious programme for the way Carmarthen will grow in the next 10 years. If our suppliers understand where we're coming from at that level, then I think the rest of it fits into place very easily. If you read the community strategy, for example, and that talks about improving health, you will understand that we'll want to buy better quality food. That means buying in a different way, and that brings with it a whole new set of challenges for us. Once the SMEs understand that, they can feed into that process, and they've got the flexibility to be able to do it, which the large people haven't. The reasons for not submitting a tender, I think, are many and varied. One that regularly comes up is the cost of bidding. It can be very expensive to bid for local authority work. We ask for a lot of information. Some of that is to enable us to make the decision, but some of it is legal requirement. We need to be able to explain in the simplest possible form what we need, and we need to ask for it once, not a number of times. There are other reasons, of course. Past failures is often cited as a reason. And interestingly, the follow-up question to that is, were you debriefed last time? Did we understand one another as to why we didn't take up the offer last time? Another issue that's often cited is the lack of clarity in the specification that we've put out as an authority. We like to think that we're quite good at this. Clearly, sometimes we get it wrong. It's an issue that comes back to us very often. And very often a supplier will say to us, you've told me specifically what you want me to do, rather than allowed me to furnish you with ideas as to how I could do it. And that use of open specifications is something that is a big issue for all of us, but certainly the attention of a lot of focus at the moment. That's the way we're going as well. I think we have to say major opportunities. That there are difficulties, and we recognise those difficulties. And part of the dialogue that's gone on with business in the local area over the past 18 months looks at their capacity and their interest really in pursuing that line. I know neighbouring authorities, and the health authority in particularly, have gone down that route very firmly because there are definite cost advantages in terms of process cost. There's a recent example of a PC contract where the bidding was done electronically, and that generated fantastic competition and brought real benefits to the collaboration who were involved in that bid, in putting the tender out rather. They're geared up, that sector is geared up for that sort of response. There are other sectors, other small businesses, and sometimes micro businesses who say to us, we would hate to see that because we just couldn't cope with it. It would put us out of business. And it's getting the balance for where we use it and where we don't use it, I think, is the key for Carmarthenshire. The supplier analysis, I think, is the lifeblood of information for a procurement manager. That's the one tool that will allow you to successfully manage your procurement risk and allocate your procurement resources. Absolutely critical, absolutely critical. The knowledge that you glean from that enables you, in the first instance, to talk about collaboration, because unless you've got a clear picture of what you're spending, where you're spending and who with, any discussions are meaningless really. A lot of the public sector are now in that position. And particularly we're talking about collaboration across business sectors that haven't traditionally collaborated, the local authorities and the health authority, for example, that information is what will get you into a position where you can draw up collaborative arrangements. Very much so. In Carmarthenshire, the integration of sustainability into our procurement is one of our key drivers. It's also a key driver for the National Assembly, and procurement professionals have been told in no uncertain terms that sustainability and environmental considerations aren't a bolt-on, they're not an addition, they're integral to everything we do. We're very supportive of the national move towards aggregation of contracts, but only where that doesn't affect the capacity of our local SME base to bid for those contracts. I think the move towards aggregation of contracting should be seen as a positive for the SME base out there, because there is national agreement in Wales, and we have a structure where all Wales procurement people meet. And as I say, there is national agreement that in putting together those big collaborative contracts, they will be put together in such a way as that so that SMEs aren't disadvantaged by the contract packaging. That means splitting them down into bite-sized lots. I don't think that collaborative contracting prevents SMEs from bidding for business. It might call for a new approach from those SMEs. Traditionally in Wales, we've been very independent in terms of our supply base, and we still have an immense number of small businesses, one-man businesses, or one-person businesses, should I say. That's traditionally what our supply base looks like in Wales, and in the past, they have been in competition with one another. I think with the bigger contracts, even though they'll be split into bite-sized lots, they have the opportunity, those SMEs have the opportunity to work together with one another to vastly improve their competitiveness. But that calls for a change in thinking. And I think part of our role is to develop that thinking and to make the right noises and talk about the benefits of doing that. The question of purchasing locally and the advantages that can bring has brought a tremendous amount of attention in government circles particularly. And the Office of the Deputy Prime Minister had recently commissioned a study from the New Economics Foundation, which I think is called Public Spending for Public Benefit. That is a detailed analysis of where public spending locally can produce bigger community advantages. Very, very interesting document. It talks about evaluating the real value of £1 spent in your community and re-spent in your community rather than money leaking out of the area. New Economics Foundation have done a great deal of work, and I can recommend their publications on their website. That's a very relevant, very recent case study. Tremendous information in there. Public sector rules and EU regulations, I think, advantage rather than disadvantage the SME sector. They ensure a level playing field. They make absolutely certain that if an authority is seeking to put out contracts that don't allow equal access, then there is some sort of redress to that. I see them very much as an advantage rather than a disadvantage.